Okay, same t-shirt as yesterday. I know, I'm scruffy git. Right, lots and lots of answers yesterday. Thank you very much. The first ones I'm going to do is I'm going to do one today on steroids in sports, and then I'm going to do a day in the life tomorrow because I'm on the road. I'm going to see 2 clients tomorrow. So what I'll do is I'll do a lot of snapshot videos and try and enter it together in some form of video. I've never done that, so I need to find some editing software. But, you know, it'll be a bit rough, I'm afraid, but first attempt and all that, but we'll try and get something together. Training videos are going to have to wait. They're not going to be particularly interesting at this point, but I will do a video on my training style. And that sort of thing. So there'll be the next few videos that are going to go up with content. I'm working all weekend this weekend. The wife's away, so I'll probably get some videos up over the weekend as well. So we're going to start today with drugs in sports, particularly athletics, that type of sport. Not powerlifting, strongman, or that bollocks. Does it happen? Of course it does. What a fucking idiot. No, I can't remember the name of the study, but it's very well quoted that someone researched top amateur level athletes and said if they took a tablet that was going to make them top of the game but would potentially kill them in 10 years' time, would they take it? And a resounding 99% said yes. And you've got to think, if you're dedicating your life to your sport, if you're training and you've given up a social life, you've given up so much, because a lot of these athletes aren't particularly well funded, and someone turns around and goes, here's a tablet, it will make you win. You're telling me you're going to say no? For the mass majority of people, they will say yes. There are people with morals, there are people with standards, and there are genuinely top level natural athletes. But there's a lot that aren't. Do the Olympics have drug users? Yes. Is WADA corrupt? Not sure. Don't think so, just think it's very ineffective. So why is it ineffective then? Well, because the managers and the sports teams and even the athletic associations of various countries manage their drug testing. So WADA speaks to them to organise drug testing, and they manage it. And effectively they remove those to a large degree that they're never going to fail. Now, most top athletes have their own coaches that are quite independent to the team, so sometimes drug usage can get a bit skewy, out of control, and obviously there are people that fall foul. But I was recently speaking to a ex-international athlete who was a natural athlete, and they got semi-finalist, finalist, world level, and they were telling me that they were at a particular race, and she was racing against a Russian girl, and the Russian coach was on the side of the line at the starting point, and he did this, and she was a bit, what the fucking hell that means? Anyway, race started, race continued, and running up to the line, the Russian girl was third. Suddenly, the Russian girl pulled up with a hamstring injury, lost third place. Subsequently, the third place finisher was tested. So, this is how coaches manage it. She said even when she was pregnant and she wasn't racing, she was continually called for testing because they had to make the numbers up. She remembers being at a training camp in, I believe it was Ibiza, but I may be wrong with that. My memory's not the best these days. And a lot of the top British athletes, and she did name names, but I can't remember them. I know. We're told the night before, you've got a day off tomorrow, there's a coach booked who's going to take you on a trip. So they all toddled off early in the morning. 3 hours later, the testers rocked up at the training camp, tested everybody else, and then pissed off. Because the people they wanted, well, they got everybody they needed. They got everybody who was there. Those that were off avoided testing. And it's stuff like that. Those in the UK will remember the Mo Farah incident when Mo Farah Mr. Test. Tester was knocking at his door and he claimed he'd slept in. Then why was he seen jumping his back fence and running down the back alley? Seriously. I have it on good authority and I have no reason to mistrust the person that he disappeared to avoid that drug test. So, you know, it's common. Do all athletes use? No, not at all. And there's different types of use. You know, you've got downers, drugs that will settle nerves, that will calm people down for stuff like archery, shooting, precision stuff. I have no doubt that nootropics, we say it right, are used in stuff like chess, things like that. And it's the top sports, so you're talking 100, 200, 400 and field events where the mass amount of usage is prevalent. And though not everybody, they are large numbers. I mean, you know, everyone goes on about Russia doping at the Olympics. Well, the only big difference between Russia and America and Europe is that Russia do it. They don't hide it. And if they get caught, they get caught. Russia and America and Europe put in medical exemption forms. It's amazing how many athletes suddenly suffer from exercise-induced asthma after they've been training for 15, 20 years and therefore need a stimulant in order to control that asthma or have serious heart conditions. And Jamaica, fucking test at all. I don't think they even have a testing service in the country. So, there you go. You know, usage in sport is big. And I can understand the driving factor. So why is it covered up? Well, money. If your events or your athletes are sponsored by Adidas, Adidas don't want to sponsor somebody that's been seen as a cheat. So, obviously, there's money. That sponsorship funds that athlete, but that sponsorship also funds that coach, funds that manager, funds that training facility. And there are people in administration roles that earn money from sponsorship or are funded by grants from the government or are funded by sports associations which rely on sponsorships and that sort of thing. If that money goes because your athletes are drugs cheats, then you'll have a job. So that's what they're doing. Money. Performance and money. They want to be the best. They'll do anything they can to be the best. And those behind them are driven by a desire for success as well, but also by money. Because otherwise they don't have any money. Because there'll be no funding to fund their department. Even Cycling UK has admitted it's covered up doping issues. It's hidden them. But this all gets sort of swept under the carpet, and it doesn't really make... That should have been massive headline news. The National Cycling Association, or whatever it's called, of the UK, is found to be covering up drug use. But no. It just comes out in a little blurb somewhere in a corner, and no one really sees much of it. Why? Because they have to protect their incomes. They have to damage limitations. You know, I'd love to see an open Olympic Games, but I think the bottom line is you wouldn't see that much change in performance issues. You'd see a bit, but it wouldn't be massive. I mean, the Russians were bang at it. But then there's athletes that are household names in the UK. Fatma Whitbread, damn right she was. She looks more like a bloke than I fucking do. And her record stood for what, 15, 20 years? Come on. Think about it. So, you know, drugs in sports is part of sports. Those that choose to take a moral ground, greatest respect. But the vast majority of top-end athletes use in some way or another. I mean, they're all pumping gear into them, but there is a plethora of performance drugs, stimulants, all sorts of things that are actually banned by WADA. And this medication escape route, it's bollocks. It's just a paper trail to cover up, to make excuses, to make it acceptable. Can you imagine the outrage if Mo Farah was proven to be a drug user? Can you imagine the damage that would do to the funding and financing of athletics in the UK? I mean, the guy advertises corn, for fuck's sake. You know, wholesome guy. He's not a drugs cheat. Well, but then again, are they cheats? If everybody's doing it, is it cheating? There was once an interview with a Canadian sprinter who got banned from using steroids. I can't remember his name, and I should do. I know it's terrible. But they interviewed him, and one of the questions they asked him was, did you get any peer pressure? Did you get any criticism from your peers? Were you shunned by the sprinting community or anything like that? And he went, no, not at all. And they asked him why. And he went, well, that would be hypocritical, wouldn't it? Says a lot, doesn't it? When a top athlete, when we're talking Olympic top athlete, I just can't remember his name, turns around and says that basically for his colleagues to criticise his juggers, they'd all be being hypocrites. Armstrong, the only reason he got tested, really, and pushed out was because he was such a fucking dick. He was an arsehole. He was a wanker. And everybody fucking hated him. So, given the opportunity, they got rid. Doping in cycling is as common as putting feet on pedals is in cycling. It's massive. From an amateur right through to professional ranks. You know, and sports like rugby have probably quite a high level of use as well. And I believe football does, as in UK football, soccer. Maybe not in gear, but growth hormone, that sort of stuff. Yeah, pretty much. You think they recover from those injuries because of damn good physio? You know, they've got the budgets, they've got the know-how, they've got the accessibility. Of course they're using fucking growth. Obviously, American football, without a doubt, goes without saying, doesn't it? It's big in MMA. Boxing? I don't know, is the honest answer. I've seen a bit in amateur level. I'm not so sure it pulls through to the pro ranks at massive level, but I know Mike Tyson admitted to something or got positive for some sort of drug. No doubt someone, I don't really follow boxing, so I'm not too sure, but no doubt somebody will be able to correct something. But I'm sure he got caught with some sort of stimulant or something in his system. So, you know, it goes on across the board. My personal opinion, I think it should be open. I think it should be regulated. I think it should be under doctors' control. And I think there should be various, almost like a medical to pass before they compete. But I think they should let them have at it. But also do a fully drug-free one. The issue is, and this would be very interesting, where would the sponsors go? Would they be associated with the drug-using freaks that were hitting all these incredible times and events and heights and lengths and weights and everything else? Or would it be with the naturals that were still elite athletes, but because we've been so spoilt by drug users parading as naturals, would we be able to give the accreditation to the achievements of the naturals? So what would we watch? Would we watch the freaks? Would we watch the naturals? And the thing is that if we'd never had drug uses in sport, apparently drug use in sports has been going on since the 50s, but if we'd never had drug use in sports, then probably natural achievements would be so much more highly regarded, because we've now got benchmarks of artificial awards, of artificial achievements. Life is probably the wrong word, but drug-aided achievements. Then because we've seen that, and we've seen those numbers, the natural achievements just start to, even though we know they're natural, we know they've not used drugs, they're just not as impressive, because we want to see that short time, we want to see that extreme height in a pole vault, or a length in a jump, or length in a throw. we don't want to see those times get shorter, even if the previous holders were drug users. So it would be interesting. I think from a viewing point of view, the vast populace would want to see the extremes. Sort of society we're in these days. It'd be interesting to see whether the money would flow that way as well, whether the sponsorship would flow that way. I know years and years ago the Olympia introduced some random testing, and there was a marked decrease in the body mass of the bodybuilders on stage. And the sponsors turned around and effectively said to Weider at the time, "You do that again and we ain't fucking sponsoring it," because it wasn't extreme, so it didn't attract marketing, so it didn't attract viewers, so it didn't attract exposure. You know, and as a society, we want extremes. We might not agree with them, but we still want to look at them. You know, when a picture of a female bodybuilder that's got extreme mass goes around, loads of critical comments, but everybody looks. Everybody wants to see the freak. And that's the same in sports. Everybody wants to see the freak of performance. Everybody wants to see the amazing. And the thing is, it does take a little bit away from those that are naturally achieving, be it just incredible genetics, working very hard. I mean, they all work very hard. There's no denying that. I don't think you can criticise either of them for the workloads. I don't think there's particularly any difference between assisted athletes and non-assisted athletes when it comes to the actual effort and workload they put into what they do. Because they all work to the extreme ability and limits. There's no denying that. But I would be interested to see how much average times reduced. And how much of a significant impact drug use is making in sports. But it definitely goes on. And the Olympics are full of it. There's no denying that. I mean, the whole fucking Russian team was banned. Yeah, that's massive. And it's not like they don't know the rules. It's not like they don't know what's going on. They went into this knowing what happens, knowing about drug testing. So they've not been caught with the pants down as such. You know, they knew what they were getting into, and yet they still had huge amounts of drug use across the board with their athletes. So if they're doing it, everybody else has got to be. Got to be. There's no two ways about it. And the Russian athletes have quite a good financial support network. The country does invest in their athletes quite well in training camps and support of that nature. Probably far better than the UK does, to be honest. So, you know, I can see drug uses in pretty much every sport in one way or another. Be it to control weight, be it as a stimulant, be it as straight out steroids, or injury recoveries, growth hormones, TB500, BPC 150, you know, those sort of drugs. Definitely. And at what point are we going, well, that's drug use and that's natural? I mean, currently, I could have my blood removed, oxygenated, and put back into my body, and that's not classed as assisting me at the moment. Oxygen doping. But it obviously gives me an unnatural advantage because there'll be a higher level of oxygen within my blood than there would be naturally. So where do you start? Where do you finish? So I think the only real way is an all or nothing situation, where one is what God gave you, and the other one is kitchen sink. I'd love to see it myself. I don't want to see it regulated. I don't want to see it controlled. I want to see people going through proper health checks. I wouldn't want to suddenly see top athletes dropping dead because they had an open window to use as much drugs and as many drugs as they wanted. And to some degree, the testing does sort of keep it under control because they can't get too silly with it. So in a way, it's a bit of a regulatory system. But it'd be nice to see how much, if any, difference was made to the world records that currently stand if it was an open playing field. Right. Goodbye.